What's up guys, it's Punchy, and today I have a very specific issue to bring up that I'm not really too excited to see. In full honesty, we might have lost. There's two things in Deepwoken that I don't think are too fun to fight against. That's really just my opinion, but when they're combined, it becomes negative for the entire game. And let's get right into that. The first issue a lot of people kinda dislike in any sort of combat are mantras or tools that serve as vertical movement. Sure, climbing up walls or using a simple jump mantra isn't really that OP in a 1v1 fight, but it can be difficult to deal with players on completely different height levels. In fact, a primary issue with the Star Kindred Oath was the ability to dash straight up, which happened all the time, and it was hard to fight. Especially if they had that Star Kindred synergy with the Mugetsu Fireblade, you can't really punish them if they're super high up in the air. Sure, this type of vertical movement is really hard to counteract, but it's manageable, right? And this takes me to my second reasonable issue: difficult to punish attacks that you just cannot do something about because of your build. Things like projectiles can be dealt with by closing the gap, but my main sort of concern are specific attacks just like this. For example, the Flame Hero Blade Critical has a super long lasting hitbox that's very difficult to approach but easy to defend against. Its uptime allows the user to pull people in during the last few frames, and you can just block this, but there's not too much that can be done to punish players without using a projectile. They're not putting in any work to make a punishable move unpunishable. It's just very safe by nature. The same thing can be said about Astral Wind, specifically when it flings players into the air even if they parry or block its secondary attack. You're supposed to be able to punish after defending this final section of the mantra, but for some reason you're thrown into the air. That's also another reason why being at different heights is so hard for 1v1 combat, because both players cannot interact. Those two issues can be frustrating separately, but we have something that's both and is very negative for Deepwoken combat as a whole. I present to you Flame Ballista's Spring Spark. I'm sure this has already been stated many times before, but I'd like to reinforce the idea that this mantra is a little bit ridiculous. Flame Ballista is a chargeable mantra that does substantial damage and can be used to snipe players from afar. Well, the Spring Spark just brings the user into the air and allows a charge from a separate height. This combines both issues simultaneously, being at different height levels and having a free, unpunishable attack. In most cases, players will not be able to hit the Flame Ballista user while they're in the air unless they have auto-aim moves, giant AoE attacks, or projectile mantras that can be freely aimed. The user just floats on up and charges their ballista, while many players are helpless and have to respect this mantra. It's also worth stating that, ironically enough, that this Flame Ballista Spring Spark is terrible for combat. It's definitely not good. It doesn't really matter if you're in the air or on the ground. A Flame Ballista realistically is not hitting a competent player that still has their dodge. In fact, the main reason why Flame Ballista is still powerful in the current meta is due to sniping. When using Flame Ballista, 9 out of 10 times you want to be far away, most likely above your target, rendering the Spring Spark useless. I mean, realistically, you're probably already above them on a cliff or something, so why use the spark? So why are players using this ability? Well, this attack is extremely useful for stalling or wasting time to restore resources. At the cost of draining your ether, it's possible to stay in the air so your posture and move cooldowns recover without being at any risk. If players cannot hit the ballista user, that's almost a free regeneration, and of course the defending player on the ground also refills their resources during this time period. Like, it fully breaks the fight because people are doing nothing. Finally, the main criticism I have for this mantra Spark is that it's so straightforward and it instantly stops fights, and there's not that much that can be done about it. I think it would be positive if the Spring Spark variant was a little bit similar to the Diagonal Leap that Shardbow has. I mean, at the least, we could have some creative movement and possible counterplay options by dodging towards the leaping player. But yeah, those are my thoughts, and I just don't think that this mantra Spark has a place in current Deepwoken PvP. Share your thoughts down below and make sure to like and subscribe because I'm trying to hit 75k. Thanks again, it's Punchin' time.